Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Frank. It's the holidays and specifically near Halloween. So today I want to show you guys how to take little cheap Halloween decorations you can get at the dollar store and repurpose them into your 3D prints and props. So if you guys follow me on social media, on Instagram or TikTok or wherever, you see that I've been working on these Infinity Stone props. And while there are tutorials coming out for each and every one of these, all six, the sixth one's a surprise. I've gotten some good reception and a lot of questions about how I got a lot of the lights to work, the systems I've been using, the electronics. Now, I know I already just recently did a video on the flicker LED utilizing one of these little pumpkin lights, and this is a continuation of that basically because of all the questions I've been getting. So what I did is I actually went to the store, I grabbed even more lights and props and little extra tea lights and little eyes and just a bunch of other little cheap electronics I could find for Halloween. And some of these I haven't even opened yet. I want to actually take them apart with you guys live, or live for me, and show you guys kind of what's inside them, what you're going to be looking for, and what kind of parts you can use to then go and integrate them into your props. Now, I know you can go on eBay or Amazon or AliExpress or Banggood and get, LEDs by the dozens in bulk. That's not what this is about. Now, if you know how to do that stuff, it's great. There are tutorials for that. I will eventually be making tutorials for that, so please be patient. But for the time being, sometimes you just want a light to flicker. Sometimes you just want an LED. Inside this little tea light is the entire circuit you need. It even has a switch you can utilize. This is a little bit of a fire and forget thing. You're paying for the convenience, and that's what I kind of want to show you guys, that you don't need to have this mass knowledge of electronics and circuitry and all this when the system's already been made for you. Somebody already did this work for you. You're just going to take it and repurpose it into something. So we're going to kind of go through, I'll crack some of these open. I'll show you a little bit of the electronics inside these props that I've already made, but I don't want to give away all my secrets. So things we're not going to be talking about. We're not going to be talking about LiPo batteries and drone batteries or USB batteries. We're really going to be only focusing on what you get inside these props and what can be then integrated and utilized in something like this. So let me adjust this camera angle and we'll get started. So I kind of have a little bit of a wide variety kind of going on here. Like I said, this is the little tea light pumpkin thing that I had disassembled for the Mark 85 flickering LED light, and as you can see, it does a really good job of making that little flicker effect, and it was very simple to take apart. You can strip it down completely to the little circuit that just sits here, so the whole pumpkin thing is gone, and you can actually just have access to the switch, which just sits and rotates left and right. And then this can be pretty much put in anything. You can throw anything over top of it. You can bend the LED within reason. You can move it around, and it's its own little self-contained system with a battery holder. Now you could very easily cut the LED out, extend the wires, have the battery pack kind of sitting somewhere else and allocate this, but we've kind of already gone over these ones. So we're gonna move these over to the side. And if you want to see what that circuit looks like when you take it all out, it's literally just this little coin 3-volt battery and then the flicker LED. And then you can actually take them and touch the positive and negative and flip it because you hooked it up wrong. And now that's the entire system, is just this little battery and the LED flickering on and off. So again, you can throw some wires on here, you can tape the wires, you can get as creative as you want, as long as you have some type of switch, so obviously the battery doesn't die. But since we know that this LED and this battery came together in the same system, you don't have to worry about measuring voltages and resistances. This system was made for itself. And as cheap as manufacturers might get, they want these things to last. They want this thing, to last as long as possible. I'm not talking about premium parts, but if the LED blows out within a few minutes of it being on, it's not going to get them much business and they're not going to be able to sell them in bulk. So having this system just self-contained works perfectly for this because that it's already rated for the proper voltage. These tea lights operated in the same way, and these are more of a warm glow kind of orange, and I'm actually using these for something else. Now, unlike this one where it just very simply pried apart, where the sides weren't glued together too well, and this one came right out. That's literally it. It pops right out. This one I had to cut apart. Unfortunately, it was glued a little bit more secure because I'd already tested taking these ones apart, but they're definitely a little bit of a different system. So I was just cutting around the edge, and sometimes you might actually end up breaking one or two of these things, but they're so cheap that if you sacrifice one of them, getting the circuitry out of it at the very least is very much worth it. So you can just cut around the edge and fling plastic everywhere. Don't get anything in your eye. And then pull the circuitry and the LED out. Now this one's a little bit different than the ones I had been dealing with before. The ones from the orange pumpkin, the switch needs to be pressed down. The switch actually rides on a little channel that's in here, because if I push the switch hard enough, it's just gonna come right out. So you need to be creative on when you put this back into something so the switch stays in. However, with this one right here, the switch is its whole own system that's actually hot glued into the plastic. So you could actually repurpose this switch for a couple different purposes, and actually integrate it into another prop simply by cutting this out and removing the hot glue. So we can actually go ahead and rip this out and then just get rid of this hot glue that's sitting in here. And by taking this apart, you have the negative contact for the battery, and it's all hot glued and soldered together here. So you could very easily, if you're good at soldering very tiny electronics, you could actually strip all this hot glue off. There we go. So now you have access to the switch a little bit better. And again, you could pull this apart however you see fit. You could leave it all as a self-contained system, and you can kind of play with this and integrate it into something else. And then this is the same kind of flickering LED system with the little battery in the bottom. So you could definitely fit this into really very tiny props just by simply trimming off the plastics, trimming off all the extra stuff that's floating all around it. You could significantly shrink the physical footprint of this little part and fit it into a lot more stuff. Now the size of this is shrank significantly, and you could put this in something small, just a little trinket that might hang out on the shelf or something. Now these are the ones I really wanted to look at. This is a slow fade color changing LED that's meant to go inside a pumpkin. It substitutes and it goes in as its eye. And I really want to see how this what makes the inside of this tick. So inside of here, it's just a flat LED board. That's actually really cool. That's a very simple system. So let's cut this down and get this out of there. Now honestly, I don't know what I'm going to use this one for, but it was just too cheap to pass up. That's it. It's actually a really tiny little board. So that's pretty cool. And it looks like it's screwed in. Pop this out and see, is the battery held in? Oh, that's okay. Wow, that is really cool. This LED system that was sitting, that had a pretty large footprint, only had this tiny board in it. And you can see just the size difference here. So we can get rid of the eye, and the battery system and the switch are all integrated right here. So you could put this underneath something and it would just glow really slow. Now you're not going to have control of the RGB fade, but this being such a tiny little system, you could really get pretty creative on where you could put this. Now it's a momentary push switch that just turns on and off. It's this little white switch in the back, and every time you press it, it just turns it on and off. However, if my suspicions are correct, if we touch these two contacts together, it'll do the same thing. Yep, okay. So you can see where the switch is actually soldered through the board, and that's all it's doing. Every time that the contacts are touched, it turns on and off. So you could use this to make your own switch by soldering two wires in. You could leave this little push button there, it's not doing any damage, or you could actually unsolder this, pull out the little switch and throw in two wires, and every time you touch those wires together, it's going to activate the little circuit that's in there. That's really awesome. So that's a little handy thing. I'm curious to what I can use that for. Maybe something with like infinity stones or a gauntlet. I don't know. These are all the same tea lights. So I'm just going to open up. These are still that creepy kind of orange, but these ones seem to flicker a lot more. So let's take these apart. So these are the exact same system as the original pumpkin ones. They have the exact same board layout, the same switch type, so they were just repurposed. So this little pumpkin one and these tea lights are the same, absolutely the same thing. The same type of LED, the same type of coin battery, so we just have a lot more of these now. So I'm not gonna bother taking the rest of those apart. Those can just stay in the packaging. This is what I'm excited about. This thing is so cool. So if you guys can't imagine what I'm probably going to use this for, this is probably going to be for my 6th Infinity Stone prop for the Soul Stone, because it's orange, and when I saw this, I knew I had to do something cool with it. So auto timer, 4 hours on, 20 hours off, not bad. So this is obviously a little bit bigger, and you know what? I'm going to take out just the normal screws first. We know where the battery compartment is. So sometimes with plastic like these, when they're made, the screws get drilled in at a very high speed and it almost melts them. So you'll have a hell of a time taking some of the screws out. A lot of times a pair of pliers can really lend to getting those screws out. I've never taken this one apart before, but I have definitely taken very similar things apart. So let me get all these out and we'll continue. Okay, cool. So no, it doesn't still want to come out. We can then on the edge. Oh, here we go. Ah, that's clever. So it's just a board. That's really cool. So it's just a flat board that is hot glued. I don't want to break anything. Okay, let me turn this on so you can see. Actually, the test button still works. So it's a flat board that is hot glued in a cylinder. So as it has the chasing LED system that goes up, it's all self-contained. This can go anywhere now. Wow, this is really cool. Also, when you're dealing with very, very low voltages like this, AA's, AAA batteries, things of such low amperage, you really don't have to worry about getting shocked. It would take a lot to actually hurt you. You're not going to do any damage to yourself from something of such low voltage, but still be careful. I would suggest taking the batteries out when you do start cutting this thing apart, but I know what I should and shouldn't be touching, but just please be careful, be smart about this. I probably should have said that in the beginning, but I'm comfortable with AA's and AAA's, and they're not, you can touch both positive and negative at the same time. You're not really gonna feel it unless you lick your fingers or something else goes wrong, but you'll be all right. So this is the whole system right here. It's the board, and on here you can actually see, I've seen boards like this before, or can't really call it a board, but there's different resistors spread around. Let me see if I can zoom in. There we go. So you can see that there's different resistors actually integrated here, and as the LEDs chase up, D1, D2, D3 diode, they'll move up based on this chip that's actually programmed in them. And it's very simple because the positive and negative are sitting right here. Ultimately, this is what you need to get power. And these are, what, 3 AAA batteries, I believe? 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. So, roughly 4.5 to 5 volts. My bad, my math is not there today. So as long as you're getting them that same rough voltage, you're gonna be in very good shape. So what you could do is, I'm probably not gonna use this battery pack, so I can go ahead and snip the negative. And right here is what I was talking about. This has another whole self-contained switch system. That's really awesome. So here's the switch system, and we can pull this out. There's a little bit of hot glue on it, that's all right. And you can actually see this little momentary push button, this little test circuit here. All that was doing was bypassing this switch. So what I'm gonna do is I actually wanna save both of these. So I'm gonna cut the switch out, and then I'm gonna cut the momentary switch off the board. So now what we have right here is a little toggle switch. And when it's pressed, it'll give us, electricity. It'll allow a very low voltage. I wouldn't go more than 5 volts on this, very low, just battery amperage. And then we could use this toggle switch for really anything, as long as we just want to activate it. As long as you're holding it, that circuit will be closed. So we have a very handy little piece of electronics here. And then we have batteries, and then we have the little board system here. And this is just neat and handy, and I like this. I like how it's very simple. You can lay this down, you can paste it inside something. And then I have the positive and negatives here, and then I have this little super tiny switch. Now I can use this switch for really anything I want. Actually, this switch is almost the exact same switch that I used inside my Tesseract. And I can actually show you how the one I used in my Tesseract had metal prongs on it. So I want to show you guys that right now. So it's still in work, so please don't be too harsh with your judgment. But this is the Tesseract I'm working on, and I'm still working on the translucency and the fill and how I'm getting everything to diffuse. But right on the back, because you're not going to see the back, I need a way to keep the battery in there. I have another switch, and it goes right through the clear PLA. And I don't want to open this because I don't want you guys judging me on how ugly it is inside. But basically, I melted that same, very similar switch that we just found. I actually melted a hole through the clear PLA and melted it into it. So I made a cocoon basically around the switch to hold it in place. There's no super glue holding that on. So now I can use this little switch right here to turn the Tesseract on and off. And it is literally the only difference between this switch and this switch. This one had some metal prongs on the side that gave me more of a bite surface to actually glue it into. You know what? I'll show you guys because you know I love you all. So like I said, it's still in work, but there's strips of LEDs, and these were purchased LED strips. They actually look like this when I bought them. And then there's a LiPo battery hiding underneath it, but it's the same type of circuitry system, and when you turn it on, that's it. It just interrupts. Now this switch came off of a 5-volt system, and this is a 5-volt LiPo battery, so I know it's pretty safe to use in this system. It can handle it without needing something like a relay. So this worked out pretty perfectly. Now if I wanted this Tesseract for whatever reason to glow orange, I have a perfect little system already laid out right here that I could just kind of throw in there. So that's a really cool little board with a switch. So we're gonna move this over here so I don't lose that. Neat. For now, I am going to keep this because I can trim this pack down now. Now I have a triple battery pack right here, and right here are the positive and negative. So we get this one and this one. So here and here are the positive and negatives of this entire battery pack. And what we can do with that is I can trim all of this plastic off here and actually consolidate this, and I still have the cover. So now I have a triple battery pack that I can then go and integrate it into a print. If I wanted to, I could have got creative and maybe used this on the bottom of the Tesseract or however I wanted to. So this comes in handy, and you know, you don't have to design or model or print something. It's all ready to go. Okay, last but not least is LED letter lights. And I'm gonna be honest, last night when I was working on something, I did cut this battery pack out because I did need to cannibalize one of the switches from it. So I already did shred this because it was very similar to what I've used. However, I have not opened up these LEDs yet to see actually what makes them tick. But it was two AA batteries. And this says Happy Halloween. And how is this wrapped up? And can I get these out? Oh, yep, I can. All right, there we go. So now you have some cutesy little letters you could play with. I don't know what you could use these for, but cool. And these are just straight black wires. So I'm gonna go and strip these back because I want to test these and see what they look like. Actually, we're gonna go ahead and use this battery pack that I just opened back up to test the LEDs. Yep, there we go. So what we can do is we can wrap this wire under. So I cut the switch out of this, so now I don't have the option to switch it on and off, only when it's wired in. Okay, these are actually brighter than I thought they would be. Not bad. It's pretty cool. Let's turn the light off. Take a look at them. So they're just straight white LEDs. There's nothing special to these really at all, but you could actually drop these into something and maneuver them around. And they are all wired in series. So unfortunately, I believe they look like they're wired in series. If one goes out, they all are probably going to go out. But then you can start cutting them apart and integrating the LEDs into something else. And I could cut the end one off and actually have, you know, do whatever I want with it. But these are definitely a nice color. These are a nice cool white. And that's it. I have a tiny little battery powered LED system. Let's stuff this in the Tesseract and just, I don't know, see what it looks like. I mean, that's something. I don't know if I'd call it the Tesseract, but, and you can definitely see the nice bright orange sitting at the bottom of it. That's pretty cool. You can definitely have I don't know why it's flickering. I think there's it's me. So you can definitely have a lot of fun with this. I'm gonna stuff that in there, throw some blue LEDs in there, and cool. So I already showed you guys in the other video how this power orb worked when I was able to pass the reed switch behind it. And I am going to make a video that's a little bit more in depth about reed switches eventually, but for the time being, this is what the circuit underneath it looks like. And all of this was exactly from that coin battery, or from the little LED Tealight, with the battery sitting in there, and it's the positive and negative are just touching it at the top and the bottom. And then I have this reed switch sitting here interrupting the circuit, and then it goes directly to the LED that is sitting behind the stone. So it's just one simple circuitry system you can play with. And again, when the reed switch passes close to a magnet, it turns on and off. So go look up reed switches. That's that system, but I want to show you the Eibach motto. Don't judge, it's still a work in progress. But here we have the really gross electrical system in the back. Now the mechanism, that's its whole own thing. So don't worry about that. But what I can do is I can pop that all out. And then we have the time stone sitting in there. And I'm still working on it, but it's the same exact system. There is the battery sitting right here, and then you have the wire going to the LED, coming out of the LED, and then another reed switch sitting right there. And what I did is I melted 2 pieces of metal on the back here. This way, when the reed switch is, when the magnet's up here at the top, nothing happens. It's next to the reed switch, but it's not in the proper magnetic field. So when I move this battery down, and hopefully you guys can be able to see this, when I move the battery down, when I slide it down, it actually turns on. So depending on the position of the magnet, I have basically a little magnetic slider switch, and sliding it back is sometimes a problem, and all I have to do is just literally slide it to the right spot, and it'll turn on. So it's still a little finicky, and I'm going to clean it up and cover it, but for the time being, it works pretty well, and it gives it just that little bit of a magic touch where I can just position it exactly where I need to, and it'll turn on and off. Now you don't need to use a reed switch. You could, like I said, you could integrate one of these entire little switch systems, glue it on the back. I could have very, very easily just drilled a hole right down the center, stuck this LED in there, and have this big white, packet sitting back there. And honestly, I might go back and do that to kind of cover this up a little bit more. I obviously used some extra wrap material and melt this all. I can play around with this. This is version 1, and we'll see what version 2 and on gets us. But as it sits for now, it works and looks pretty cool. I think that just about does it for this video, guys. I hope you found that somewhat, educational, or like, oh, that's not a bad idea. I could try that myself. Like I said, you don't need to be some like electronics wizard to do stuff like this. Go out, and this is how you learn. This is how you start. You start messing with these tiny, very simple systems, and you build on from there. You combine them, you wire them together, you add your own switches, you add your own effects. And it really starts from just playing around with little cheap throwaway things like this. And you can combine this with tutorials just like this, or way more advanced tutorials that I am even not ready for. So you can just play around with this type of stuff, and then you can end up with stuff that's like this that honestly might look a little more complicated and a little bit more advanced than it actually is, when it's just a very simple little Tealight and an extra little reed switch inside of it. I do have more electronics tutorials coming out. I do have a couple more basics to electronics. I do want to talk about these little LiPo batteries that are actually now powering most of these props, and they're all self-contained little wired-in systems that you don't really need to worry about anymore. And they come in a multitude of voltages. We have 3 volt, we have 7 volt. I think I have a 12 volt lying around some here, 11 or a 12 volt. That's going to be absolutely great for all of this. So please stay tuned for that. This is a lot of fun. And what's cool about Halloween is there's very specific colors. And then come Christmas time, we might have a lot more cool whites and a lot of reds and greens that we can also play around with. So I'm excited for what December holds too. If you guys haven't already, if you could subscribe, that'd be awesome. I am trying to, balance the cosplay and the 3D printing back and forth. You don't need to 3D print everything. Sometimes when you're just disassembling or working on parts, it gives you the perfect little size for something you can then integrate into one of these things. You don't have to 3D print the world. Sometimes it just makes a little more sense to just buy something. You can also buy little USB LED battery packs that just take, double and AAA batteries, have a switch, and plug in with a USB port. These are pretty cool. If you guys have any comments, questions, concerns, you want me to kind of cover something else that was in the video, or maybe you found a really cool product that I could get my hands on that you'd like me to take apart, or you realize, oh hey, this toy or this decoration worked out really well for this project I did, drop a comment down below. Let me know what you guys thought about this type of video, repurposing this type of stuff. It's really helpful to me and helps the channel grow. As I said before, there are tutorials coming out for this on the specific build, what I did, how I painted them, so please don't really ask about that. They are slow going. None of these are perfect or completely done. They are all kind of in their version 1 states. If you're looking for the files though, they are all scattered around Thingiverse. Just search what the appropriate prop is and it'll turn up. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it, and have a good day.